Hello and welcome back. Back to one of my crazy Hollywood stories. So, this building behind me over here on Orange is known as well, it used to be known as the Orange Towers. Now they're calling it the Orleans Orange. Whatever, right? So, over here on the second floor, or maybe it was, no, it was actually the first one above here. It was one of these two bottom floors. Resided Lords of the New Church. Okay, and they had the place for a while before they were evicted, and not because they were lacking money, they just didn't want to fucking pay. They were leaving. They were all trying to spend it on dope anyway. So, way back, I'd say early spring of 1987, I was still living up in Ventura County, up where my family's from, and I get this phone call from the singer of Angels in Bane. Now, she's this really cool blonde chick from New York City, and God knows I love New Yorkers. Loved them so much. I dated one and even almost moved there. But it's intense, and these people are intense, and you kind of get really into their vibe when you talk with these people. They're just, incredible folks. Well, anyway, I got the call, she was a really cool chick. And she's, back then, before I became Ava, New Yorkers always called me Louie for some reason, I was like this young kid to them. And they call me up and she says, "Hey, you want to hang out with Stiv Bators?" I go, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, look, I need someone to hang out with him, just keep him out of trouble, and can you come down to Hollywood like I said, "Well, when?" And she says, "Like now." I go, "Really?" "Yeah, right now. If you want to hang out with Stiv Bators, come out here right this minute." "Okay, it'll take me 1 hour, okay, because it's 60 miles away, right?" So I drop what I'm doing. I throw my leather jacket on and race my ass to Hollywood, and parked up the street at exactly where I'm parked right now. In fact, my super bonbon here. Look at this thing. Yes, I got that license plate just to annoy a friend who kept asking, "What the hell is this for a bonbon?" Anyway, so Lords of the New Church, they were camped out here in this building. Back then it used to be called the Orange Towers. And as I arrived there, my friend had to go somewhere else. Okay, she was hanging out with this guy named who was in her band called Steven Van Sant, and he had a really, really cool, or Steve Van Sant. I know, sounds very familiar name. It seemed like a lot of people had this same name. Anyway, they were taken off to go somewhere. It didn't tell me exactly where. And the drummer of Lords of the New Church seemed to be having a really nasty fight with his girlfriend. I think they were fighting over speed. I don't quite remember. It's been a long fucking time. And this is, like I said, I was in a dry spell where I got off drugs for a little while and trying to get sober by coming to Hollywood. Yeah, like that really worked. And I said, I'd met Stiv Bators like a month earlier. He was touring with Angels in Bane. Angels in Bane was this glam band from New York City, from the West Village, and they were opening up for them. So part of them, I guess, they were staying in the same place. Not entirely, can't really quite remember, but anyway, my friend, and I wish I could remember her name. It's been so many damn years. Anyway, she wound up telling me that, so I gotta leave, and here out comes Stiv. And Stiv, I'd met him like about a month earlier, because I established myself as a rock photographer at that time, and Stiv was like, "Hey, Louis, it's good to see you." And I said, "Yeah, I'll go. That's cool. You remember my name, And he said, "Oh, yeah, no, you were really cool. You took this awesome picture of me, and I remember I autographed a photo for you." And I said, "Yeah, you did. I was really proud of that photo. Actually, later got stolen years later. It's so tragic." Anyway, he says, "Hey, it's kind of tense here." He said, "You want to go out for some pizza?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, sure, okay. Hey, I'm hanging out with a goddamn rock star, right?" So who was I to say no, right? So here I was, this barely 18-year-old kid, and I get invited to go hang out with, but at that point in time was one of the biggest rock stars in my world, at least. And wound up taking me down the street to Andre. So let's go down to the corner, let's take a look. So I'm gonna pause this for a second and let's see where we can go. So here we are again. You can see across the street here, it's very fucking busy in this location. tourist goddamn central. So I can get a good view of this place. Let me see right here. Okay, so Stiv Bator walks me down Hollywood Boulevard, and we go to this place over here, Andre's Pizza, right? We hung out there for a couple hours. You know, it's a little mom and pop's place, and he's buying me beers, and you know, we're just eating pizza, and he's just talking about all kinds of stuff, and you know, he's telling me in his New York accent, you know, he thought it was kind of cool that I came out and spent some time with him, and you know, he asked me, you know, let me ask him anything I wanted to know, right? And let me get away from the sound here. Hold on. Okay, so as we were saying, Stiv, being the gracious guy that he was just such a kind New Yorker. God, I love this guy, you know. Okay, maybe he wasn't from New York, but you know, he had that whole New York vibe, you know. He was hanging out with a bunch of New Yorkers, walking around their Lords of New Church leather jackets had London underneath. Well, nonetheless. So he's talking to me. And while it's been many years, and I really don't remember too much of the conversation anymore, I remember the most poignant thing he would said to me. And he said, Louis, as he'd say, he said, hey, Louis, I want to impart one thing onto you. I said, don't worship rock stars. And I go, well, Stiv, I don't really do that. I mean, people like to meet and stuff. And, you know, I find you guys interesting, you know. But he would say, no, don't worship rock stars. We're not gods. We're just people. And, you know, we make mistakes. We have our flaws. But in the end, we're just people. And I can't say I remember much beyond that. Other than, he was right. They are just people. And what can I tell you? I'd see Stiv about maybe 2 more times after that. There was a show at Scream. And try to get backstage just to say hello, right? And Dave Dragona, who was previously in The Damned. Oh, looks like someone gave me a parking ticket. Who was previously in The Damned. Yep, gave me a ticket. Shit. He imparted on me. He was giving me shit, you know, because I was wanting to go say hello to Stiv, and Stiv, you know, was backstage, and I asked him. I asked if I could say hello just for a second, and you know, Dave Dragona's like, "Give me a fucking break, dude." You know, I was like, "Hey, come on, man, you see me around?" And he says, "Yeah, I know I've seen you around, but give me a fucking break." So he said, and the next thing you know, Stiv comes out and says, "Hey, Louis, good to see you again. Don't worry about it. You know, I know him. It's cool. Shit." And you know, talked for a minute or two, and that was October 1987. During the Scream scene that took place, and it was like a 3-day weekend, and you know, I mean, a 3-day event which culminated in Specimen playing at 4:30 in the morning, and that's a whole nother story. But that was to be the last time I talked to Stiv alive. A couple years later, you know, got hit by a car and was so high on speed that, you know, he didn't think he was in trouble, and died of internal bleeding. And it was just sad because, you know, no matter how many times I'd run into him, he'd remember who I was. He'd always say hi to me, and he was always very kind to me. And well, he'll reside in my memories. So what can I say of him? He was both an actor and a musician. He was a punk rock legend from Sham 69, and in the post-punk world, he was the front man of Lords in the Church, and always be a legend. And dare I say, he was a friend. And though we didn't get to spend that much time together, I was very appreciative of the time I got and the opportunities I got to hang out with him. And, you know, he'd always make time for me. So, there you have it. there's my Stiv Bators story. I hope you'd enjoy this. Until we see each other again. Take care. Love you all. Bye-bye.